my president. That is the message coming from thousands of anti-Trump protesters taking to the streets for a second night. But what is Donald Trump's message back? Not entirely clear. A mixed message at the very, very least. Let us discuss. We are back. Carl, why is Donald Trump engaging on Twitter with protesters? Isn't he busy?
I'm sure he is, but you know how, I mean, a tweet is, what, 140 characters? I want him to keep it. I want him to speak his mind. That's what people loved about him, is that he got out there and he didn't always run it through the political entourage of some bureaucratic machine to say, this is okay to tweet. He just said
but at the end of the campaign, people said the reason he won is because they reined him in.
A little bit, but I think, you know what, look, these protesters, this is the faction of government that Hillary Clinton sought to empower. I'm really glad that she's not in power, because this is, I mean, like, you remember the protests after Barack Obama won? No, neither do I, because it didn't happen. People just went back to work and they were like, oh, we lost.
And that's a really good point, because the frustration Donald Trump must have had seeing these protests, it had to be insane. After all, everyone was attacking him, saying, oh, when Hillary Clinton wins, Donald Trump's going to send people into the streets and create all this havoc. Can you imagine if the roles were reversed?
This is the substance of these tweets. I mean, in the middle of the night, Donald Trump tweeted that these were paid protesters incited by the media. It essentially is a conspiracy theory. There's no evidence to back that up. He received a lot of criticism. Then he retweeted saying, basically, like, I love your passion, which is kind of like
very different.
Let me ask Susan's point. Flip side, Jonathan. What do these protesters want? He won fair and square.
Well, to Susan's point, I think in the previous section, so when Ronald Reagan was elected, I'm old enough to remember that, the Bushes were elected, many of us opposed their policies. We didn't demonstrate. This is very different. I think the people demonstrating feel a direct threat from Donald Trump because of his racism, his bigotry, the fact that they believe he's a misogynist, the fact that he has been charged by many women of sexual assault, the fact that he has ripped off thousands of people. They see their entire civil rights, the thing they fought for many years, rights that they have been protected.
People are 22.
Well,
I think what you're saying here is that
they've grown up in families who have fought for that, and now, particularly young women, feel that
threat. What we're saying here is that this is the beginning of the fight, not the end. People thought that after a contentious election season, we would all sit around the campfire and sing Kumbaya. That's not going to happen, okay? This is going to be a battle,
That's a good thing.
And there's going to be a struggle. It's going to get worse before it gets worse.
What is their solution?
And how Donald Trump decides to handle that.
But talk about the post-mortem here really quickly that's going on in Hillary Clinton's world, because they just, this coming out of the Clinton campaign is that they're saying, we made mistakes, but we just couldn't overcome James Comey, the FBI director, coming out with reopening the review and then closing the review.
I don't agree. You guys are going to love this. That's BS. That was a factor, but the fact is that we, the Democratic Party, ran a terrible candidate. We ran a flawed candidate, someone that was forced upon many of us who had record high unfavorable ratings compared only to Donald Trump. That was the disaster, and one of the things I'm actually writing for CNN.com now is the struggle over who's going to be the head of the DNC.
Who is going to be the head of it?
Well, in my view, Keith Ellison, someone who can actually clean house there and not have the typical, in a certain way, if you will, we have to clean house in the same way the Republicans tried to clean house.
But it is fascinating.
But she was a disaster.
This is the first time in a very long time. Democrats don't have a clear leader. Clinton's gone. Obama's gone.
And neither do the Republicans, because Donald Trump is a progressive. He's not necessarily, I mean,
sorry, Susan, excuse me. It is Donald Trump's party now.
It is Donald Trump's party.
But he has a different message from establishment.
All right. We've got 70 more days.
Keith Ellison for DNC.
The international audience is going, who? We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it next week. Guys, thanks so much for joining me. There are 70 days until the presidential inauguration. The country has its new president-elect. The race is over, yet the nation clearly remains divided. So starting next week, we will look at the state of America. Hint, hint, we have a new name for our show. We'll see you back here next week.